From the Swiss Alps to the Canadian Rockies, celebrating unique connections between Switzerland and Canada. Brought to you by the Swiss representations in Canada.
Welcome to the Consul General of Switzerland in Vancouver. In addition to traditional consular services, our consulate helps facilitate economic, cultural, educational and scientific relations between Switzerland and Western Canada. My name is Thomas Schneider and I am the Consul General at the Swiss Consulate in Vancouver. In today's edition of the From the Alps to the Rockies podcast, I have the pleasure to talk to Nicolas Henchoz, the founding director of the EPFL+ECAL Lab, the Design Research Center of École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne and École Cantonale d'Art de Lausanne in Switzerland. Nicolas is an engineer, art director, curator, researcher and author, leading projects that turn technical performance into meaningful human experience. He teaches at EPFL and ECOLE and is a visiting professor at Polytechnique di Milano. Nicolas has curated over 30 exhibitions worldwide and authored several publications, including Design for Innovative Technologies, From Disruption to Acceptance. Welcome, Nicolas, to the podcast From the Alps to the Rockies, and thank you for finding time to speak with me today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for the invitation. I have such a great time here in Vancouver that it's really great to be together.
Let's start at the beginning by exploring the place where much of your work is rooted. For listeners who might not know, could you share a bit the story about the founding of the EPFL+ECAL Lab, and how would you describe its mission in a few words?
As you underline, I have a quite strange background, moving from science then to scientific journalism. I was even giving the headline news for National Swiss Television many years ago, and I could witness how much we spend effort to produce emerging technologies, which are absolutely fantastic. But then there's a growing gap between this technology and the citizen, the adoption phase. And innovation is about adoption. So when I had the chance to join back the presidency of EPFL in the early 2000s, I really started to see how we can recreate this connection between the scientific technical world and the cultural world. Because if you see from the Renaissance, from the beginning, we had really fertile times when we had together science, technology, and culture. Renaissance, Bauhaus, all these times were really fertile because these people were together. So I started to build a bridge with École in the early 2000. Then we had the chance to open a real facility when École got its new building. And I think what made us unique over the years, because we're not the only one to bring culture and tech together, it's really this capacity to integrate a full scientific and cultural methodology. We understand the context, we create disruptive usage with emerging technologies, we build advanced prototype, but also we measure the impact. And I think this is really important. So we have a team of designers, artists, engineers, but also psychologists. And eventually, we have most of the time operational prototypes because we try to engage with real people in real context, so to get out of the lab. So we have operational prototypes which are easy to transfer. We have also reliable knowledge about the key adoption factors. And I think that's what makes quite unique our work.
Wow, that's fascinating. Could you share a project where that transformation really made an impact?
Yeah, we have a lot of projects in health, environment, digitized heritage, luxury industry. But I would perhaps take the example of Resoli, which has been a game changer for us. We have been working with the National Association of Elderly People, trying to see how we can engage with the digital apps, and specifically in the case to foster social ties in physical neighborhoods. And you know what people were telling us, elderly people at the beginning, I'm not speaking about impaired people, really just elderly people, they were telling us, it's too complex, it's too complex. And then we forced them to use some existing app, And we saw that the success rate, in fact, was really high, 92%. So we thought that they are lying to us. And in fact, what we discovered by doing a lot of workshop experimentation is that when they told us it's too complex, it was a wrong answer. And it can lead to the wrong path, because if you just answer to what they request, you make something more simple, and then you end up with an app which tells you it's an app for dummies, and people don't like to be treated as dummies. And in fact, the real adoption barrier was lack of trust, lack of credibility, lack of impact in real life. And when we started to work not on oversimplification, but over these barriers of adoption, we end up with an app that was working really well with elderly people, but also really well with young people, because oh, that's super cool, you have so much impact in real life. So now, for instance, with these experiments, I can tell you that if you want to be really successful with digital apps, work also with elderly people. It might bring more success than the youngster one. So I think this was a game changer for us, also by working on health app, where you have to deal with inclusive perspective in many other fields. So I think that was a really nice story.
As I remember, you were also involved in the digitizing of the Montreux Jazz Festival, the whole library, right, of recordings?
Yes, that was a really big project at the beginning of our existence. I was working with the founder of the Montreux Jazz, Claude Nobs. Montreux Jazz, where you had Smoke on the Water, you have all this history with so many artists. And it's a really good example of tech possibilities, because they recorded almost all the concerts since the beginning in '67. And then you turn this into digitized files, but what you do with that? For sure you have players, but it's not very immersive. You don't have a strong experience. And so we started to see how we can revive such concert. Often we try to say, we need to do it like it was at the time, but you don't have the real artist, you don't have the audience, you don't have the excitement of the concert. So we start to understand that we should not try to revive the concert as it was, but to create a special experience, unique experience with this digitized content. For instance, we can share souvenirs. We have a different relation with the image because it's an audiovisual archive. And based on this project, we're able to do a lot of projects on archive, including the one with the Richemont Group, the watch industry. If you go in some of the famous store of this group, you'll find our installation that shows the history of watchmaking. And this is now effective in many, many places in the world.
What are the biggest challenges for people, to enjoy all your work?
First, as we work usually with partners, and we work with real contacts and real people, we have a lot of our innovation and work that are implemented and transferred. Sometimes it's online, sometimes it's offline. It really depends. All kind of service that we do and the research that we perform. Then I would say what is quite difficult usually in our work, in our daily work, I would say it's not the work with end user, with the humans. That we're quite well equipped on this, we have a strong experience. I would say it's mostly to face the preconceived idea of the engineering or management world. And why? Because when you work on new algorithm of AI, you must be an expert, and only experts can work on it. So when you're working dealing with human perception, everybody has an idea. And even myself, I have preconceived idea, often wrong. For instance, we need to make more simple stuff for elderly people. And to go beyond this preconceived idea, to say, now, it's important to dig into this human perception. It's important to invest some time to understand what can lead to adoption. It's not so obvious. And in terms of business, it's something which is super important. Look at the metaverse. I mean, we had hundreds of billions lost just because there was an ignorance of human behavior, human perception, and human adoption. So not tackling this issue, it's to be sure to fail at 99%. Then when we do this kind of research, we're not sure to get the right answer for sure. So I think really this engagement thing, we need to to take some time and effort to dig into this understanding about what really matters. Well, you're not just asking what they want, but really understanding what are the key adoption factors is something essential, but not so obvious.
Speaking of perspective, Switzerland has a global reputation for precision and innovation, but how does that translate into design thinking? Do you think there is a particular Swiss way of balancing engineering precision with human-centered design? And if so, what could the rest of the world, including Canada, learn from it?
I think it's a very interesting question, and I would say for me, precision, because I'm born in Switzerland, so I was embedded in this culture of precision. I had some relative working in the watch industry. I think it's really the capacity to secure proper functioning of the system by addressing both the details of a challenge and the systematic approach. If you take a watch, for instance, if you have a failure in just one gear, it will not work. Part of the innovation process is similar. If you neglect, for instance, some human adoption element, the whole system will fail. So this precision of Switzerland, this capacity to look at the details and to address this detail while keeping a global vision on the system, I think it's what makes perhaps this Swiss culture quite unique in the innovation. And at the same time, we also have creativity, because we can look at just the systematic approach as a very rational one. But I think with the different language, the different culture that we have in Switzerland, but also the international dimension, I think we keep also the creative part of this. So I think it's really important because it helps us to go beyond the wow effect and to have, I would say, really this capacity to bring innovation which lasts, which has really a sustainable impact. And I think it's where you get really a return on investment. And I would say when we compare to other big countries, there's perhaps a specific feature of Switzerland, because big countries like US, China, Russia, they have built strong representation of their national culture. It has for them the capacity to mobilize citizens around national goals and hence identity. So the consequence is that this constructed identity is imposed to innovative projects rather than leaving the space to understand the real context of users. So it has positive impact. It has also this negative impact, and we always try to impose this kind of a national culture. Switzerland is too small, diverse, and international to have such tendency. And I think Canada has a special situation because it's really a big country. It has this power of innovation, of research, which is absolutely fantastic. But it also combines and cultivates this cultural diversity. So I think for me, Canada has a little bit the advantage of Switzerland and what we can have in big countries with, really massive research talents. And so it really gives room, I think, for open mind and creative innovation, and perhaps also very strong ties between Canada and Switzerland.
Let's talk a bit what has brought you for the third time to Vancouver. How did your personal journey lead you from Switzerland to becoming a part of SIGGRAPH? For our listeners, SIGGRAPH is the world's leading conference on computer graphics and interactive techniques, and Vancouver, Canada is the host of its 2025 edition. Can you share with us a little bit also about the art papers, chair function that you have, and just introducing us also a little bit into SIGGRAPH?
Yes, SIGGRAPH is absolutely fascinating because it has more than 50 years of existence. So for computer science and computer techniques, it's quite long. So we celebrate our anniversary 2 years ago, and I had the chance to have several papers, academic papers, to be taken and accepted. And then I joined the jury of the art papers, and then said, but now it's your turn to be the art paper chair. So it's a lot of work, but it's absolutely fascinating to see all the ideas around the world, because we have so many applications. It's such an international event with more than 15,000 people usually coming at the conference. So that was really fascinating. But when I took this function of art paper chair and then the global diplomat chair the year after, so last year, was thinking, what can I really bring to SIGGRAPH more than just chairing and doing the daily work of a chair. And coming back to my background, I think it's really this relation between SIGGRAPH, the engineering world, the artistic world, and the society. And that's really what I can bring to SIGGRAPH. And I must say that within the organizing committee and the executive committee, I found really a lot of people that were inclined to say, now we need to be again much more in connection with the society. So I started to bring themes like trust, AI, and computer graphics. And then next year we developed this special conference, SIGGRAPH for Peace. So that was kind of an astonishing thing, and to see how computer graphics can contribute to peace. And so we had several people coming around the world to discuss about this topic and see that there's really a possibility and I think it's fascinating also for the scientists, for the engineers to see that their research in the lab can really impact society, the world, and help to build a better world. And so this year we started with the notion of SIGGRAPH for Health. So it's kind of a series where we try to see how we can better engage with the world at large. And I must say that it was really fascinating a session that we had, especially because of the guests that we had, and we had really several guests from British Columbia and British Columbia University, and that was absolutely fantastic contribution to CM and the dynamic that you have here in this area.
I totally agree. I was attending the session yesterday about health, and I was equally fascinated, and bring together scientists from Switzerland and British Columbia or Canada is really the essence of our work at the consulate, and it was really successful. And thank you again from our side for organizing this and bringing those people together. And as a global diplomat chair at SIGGRAPH, you are in a position to connect people across culture and disciplines. How do you see Switzerland's role in the global conversation that we are having at SIGGRAPH, for example, but in many other places as well?
I really think that Switzerland can play a significant role, and probably with other countries like Canada, because of this diversity of culture, because this kind of openness and also strong research, to be a platform where we discuss this notion of engagement between high-tech society, but with really pragmatic outcome, and also economic, because as I always try to underline, making this bridge between technology, culture, citizen, and users, it's also really good for business. It reduces the risk of another metaverse where we just have a hype over 1 or 2 years and then there's huge losses. I think we need to focus on this notion of sustainable impact for society, and we have a lot of conferences happening in Switzerland, for instance, GESDA, which is also giving the new insights about how we can bring fruitful innovation framework. GESDA is this Geneva Scientific and Diplomacy Anticipator, but we have also many other institutions. I think in Canada you have also other initiatives. And I think if we have a group of countries that really want to think about this way to perhaps reposition a little bit the innovation, that it's not just tech-driven, but it has really more impact, sustainable impact, to get also better business, better return investment for society, for the companies, for the government. I think that would be fantastic, and we have, I would say, ideal situation to do that.
And of course, innovation doesn't live in a vacuum. It needs stories and emotion to truly resonate. Your initiative, SIGGRAPH for Health, sits right at the intersection of art and science. Actually, SIGGRAPH as such is at the intersection of art and science. And having curated over 30 exhibitions worldwide, how do you see art helping the public connect with technology?
It's a really good question, this relation about art and technology, because often we just put them together in a room of a workshop of a project, and then artists do their artwork, and they are also in the bubble. The designer, like my lab, can also be in the bubble, and the tech remain in the bubble. So I think we need to really to think the role of arts for society. And for me, there's really three main roles. First is really to question our relation to innovation, society. It's really about questioning ourselves. What makes sense? What doesn't make sense? The second part is art cannot be a way to question. It's also must be involved into the innovation process. Again, when we think about the Renaissance, the Bauhaus, or at the Bauhaus, for instance, there were new material, concrete, big piece of glass to create big windows. It really had impact because there was involved in the innovation process or the thinking of new architecture, architects, designers, artists like Paul Klee, Kandinsky, and they were thinking how we can have other type of life, how we reshape the relation between the inside of the building and the outside, how we live together. All this thinking from artists really were not just a critical position, it was really a way to innovate. It was part of the innovation process. And then the last part, the last role of art, is the social dimension. How art we bring this connection between people because it addresses all our sentiments, our really gut feeling, our relation with society. So I think this social role is important. So for me, really, art has three roles: questioning ourselves, the society, and the tech, being part of the innovation process, and also inducing a stronger social ties and discussion into this social movement.
About the workshop from yesterday, do you have already an outcome of this workshop? Do you have time to analyze what was discussed and what potentially could be the outcome, going forward, and the sustainability of it?
I must say this workshop at CGRAPH in Vancouver about health and tech and computer graphics was really fruitful, at least for me, and also the feedback that I had from many other participants. We had the chance to have a lot of conference chair, there's several conference chair at CGRAPH, and we even had the president of the Association for Computer Machinery, the largest association in computer science and technique in the world. And he really underlined the need now to open more this community towards the world, to engage in a different way with society, to have more impact on society. I think this is a first really good outcome, so we can expect in the next month, see how now we can build further action with CGRAPH, but also with the other conferences that are going around CGRAPH with the Association for Computer Machinery. Then, I would say pragmatically, there was also several topics that have been underlined as really potential topics to work on. First, it's all the pediatric domain, which is under-investigated. Often in modelization, computer graphics, we just scale down adults model. Same for other people, we just tend to adapt the model to the situation. And here there's a huge potential to new perspective in terms of application for surgery, for diagnosis. And then we also discussed this notion of distance care for remote people living in remote areas, for just emergency situation, and also probably to avoid long queues and emergency service. And here, the new technology offers massive possibilities, and it could even have positive impact on cost. But this human dimension has been always underlined. So all this tech must not replace the human, but really bring some better interaction between humans, faster, easier. And I think there was really a lot of potential underlying in this. And for sure, there's also the traditional path for a diagnosis, surgical practice, I think. So there was really a large scope of topics, and we'll try to follow up on this and see how now we can perhaps build projects between Switzerland and Canada and involving also other countries.
And there was also a social aspect of it, the reception, in between the opening session and then the workshop. And that is also something we are particularly good at, is bringing people together. on a social stage, and I noticed that a lot of connections were made there, also between people, and that's something I personally find also important. This is definitely a stage where projects then can be born out of just personal connections.
I was contacted by your consulate to say, now, what can we do with SIGGRAPH? We know that SIGGRAPH is coming. We know that you have a function in this. And I think that's really fantastic. And probably you are one of the only country or working as a pioneer in this to say, now, we need to be also involved in this because states play a strong role in this social connection, in this interaction over the Atlantic, but also between the borders in general, and how we can bring people together. And it was not just words. You made it really happen in the conference. And I think it's a very good example. And probably we could also bring other states to do the same and to enlarge this capacity to bring people together on the virtual world, but also in the physical world when they have this kind of conference.
So before we wrap up, I want to turn to your personal impressions of Canada. What has been your most memorable experience in Canada so far? And second question attached to it, and if you could bring one insight from Canada back to Switzerland, what would it be?
It's true that when we come for such conference, there's a lot of stress to face all the obligation. But I must say, when I come here to Vancouver, and it's the third time, it's a very different setup from other places. Usually we have a conference in the US, in LA, and it's really downtown, it's very dense. So here we're also downtown, but there's always this connection with the nature. There's also a connection with the people for me, which is quite different, great openness, but also being very pragmatic to do stuff, to see now how we can really engage, how we can really do stuff. For me, it's kind of a really, I must say, almost strange place because it's so fertile. I'm coming, from the Swiss mountains, and perhaps it's what resonated also to me to have this balance between, the tech, the innovation, the urban thing, and this realistic dimension that gives you nature. And so the people sharing this culture who are really pragmatic, open, ready to do stuff, and I think this creates a really unique ambience, but which is really fruitful, I think, to build projects, to bring new ideas, and perhaps to change a bit the world in its evolution and to build a better future.
Nicolas, thank you so much for this inspiring conversation. Merci beaucoup. And for bringing a bit of Switzerland with you to Vancouver. We're living in a time when technologies like AI, immersive media, and interactive systems are reshaping everything from healthcare and climate action to education and even democracy. As this pace of change keeps accelerating, it feels more important than ever to keep human needs and values right at the center. I wish you a safe journey home, and I'm sure our paths will cross again. Merci.
Thank you very much, and I hope to come back here as soon as possible.